This is how I make an ombre rose that is a deeper colour in the middle and then it fades out to a lighter colour on the outside. I add CMC or Tylose to my sugar paste because this just makes it nice and firm and it means it sets really hard and I just knead it in. With ombre roses, I usually have the deepest colour that's going to be in the middle, and then I kind of dilute that by adding it to white. And if I want a deeper colour, I'll add a little bit more of the red, and if I want a lighter colour, I add a little bit more of the white. A bit like when you're mixing paints and you add it to white to get a paler colour. So I had 3 shades here, a red, a pink and a very pale pink, and I wanted to start with the deepest colour in the middle. So I rolled them all out with my silicone rolling pin and some corn flour, as thin as I could. I like to see the lines of the mat through the sugar paste, that's how thin I like to roll it. And then I take my petal cutters. I've got 3 sizes of these, small, medium and large, and if I'm doing a really large rose I tend to cut out quite a few of these, maybe about, I don't know, 18 to 20, and then a smaller rose I'd maybe do about 9 petals. I use my foam mat and a ball tool just to push out all the petals and give them a really thin edge. If you look at rose petals, they've got very thin edges, so I try to get this as thin as possible. You've got to work fast because if you leave it, it will air dry and then crack when you try to roll it. I use a food safe brush to brush them all with some water, and then I roll the smallest petal like this, and then I just layer and overlap the other petals each time, pushing the petal out the corners to create that rose, and I just keep tucking them in and rolling, tucking them in and rolling, and push out those outer corners of the petal. This is so much easier to explain when you've got a video of me doing it, and then I switch to the lighter petals and then go for the lightest ones on the outside of the rose. As I say, you've got to work fast because otherwise the sugar paste will start to crack, especially because it's got that CMC in it as well, and just keep going and going round and round. The petals of a rose start quite low in the middle and then they kind of come up around the sides, higher up, so I try to do this as well as I'm forming the rose. So the middle is actually a bit more sunken down into the middle of the flower. Again, just pinching those outer corners to try and look as much like a rose as I can, and adding a little bit more water as I need to. Not too much though, because it can become sticky and then difficult to handle. I try not to squash it too much as I'm working with it, and just keep it sort of in that round shape because it can easily become distorted and squashed as you're adding all of those petals. I had a foam mat by the side of me, that's how I store them until they're nice and dry, and that is the first finished rose, and I just cut that big chunk off at the bottom that seems to form whenever I make roses. Have a little play with it as it's sat in its position there, and then that's the first one done. These are for a 3-tiered cake, so I did need quite a few of them, so I made some more. I did do some plain red and plain pink ones as well, just to intersperse with these ombre ones, but that is how I make my ombre roses from sugar paste.